sleeping and they make me the underdog, I'm gonna show them all they're wrong because I'm the champion. I'm the real champion. There'll never be one like me.
Welcome to NWA Connie Corsos podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We got our guy Corey back in the house. What's going on, Corey?
Hello. How you doing?
I'm good. Pride Rock Tosa's back in the house. This is part 2. I'm ready like Freddie. How about you, bro?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's chat.
So, what are your thoughts since the last interview?
So just kind of looking at the interview and looking at stuff. I think I'm kind of looking at, on the one hand, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't even get the chance to touch on yet, like not even the tip of the iceberg yet. And it'd be really fascinating to be able to chat with that. And then on the other hand, I also see, I think I see things in the comment section that I would like to try to take a chance to straighten out just a little bit.
Yes, sir.
I know I'm not going to convince everybody of everything I say. That's not my goal or my understanding. I know that people are going to have their differences. But as far as laying out information as best as I understand it, being clear about what it is, my standpoints are, and helping people to at least be able to understand where I'm coming from. I think that much to a certain extent is going to be important, particularly when it comes to understanding the breed. So with your permission, I'd like to take a short minute or two to kind of cover some things that are I think really, really important to understand.
Absolutely.
And then go back. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to the Tosa, I get all kinds of questions. I get all kinds of questions. I'll see all kinds of comments, and it's not just, I mean, it seems like sometimes I can't even think in my head the word Tosa Inu without somebody popping up from behind a corner saying something about, this breed or that breed is better and all that other kind of stuff. But even beyond that, I think that there are people with legitimate questions that are genuinely trying to learn things, genuinely trying to understand things. And the only information out there is it's just not good. It's not really good at all.
Right.
And it doesn't take a whole lot to see that once you start looking at it, but it's clean enough on the surface and fits with preconceived notions enough that most people aren't going to look at it. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to those sorts of things, I'd like to lay some stuff out there.
Okay.
So for one, the stud book for the Tosa Inu in Japan is not closed. It is not now closed. It has never been closed. And if the dogmen in Japan have their way, the dogmen in Japan and Korea have their way, it's never going to be closed. And I could go down the list of things that are very, you might say are very odd, right? For people that are trying to create or manage a breed. And as many times as we come to these sorts of ideas, it makes it would be easier for me to kind of lay out a few base points. And once we've got those, we can tie back to them over and over and over again. The first one is this. A lot of people understand dogs and dog breeds through a very westernized lens. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing bad about that. It's just who we are, it's where we are, and it's how we see things. It's just the same as speaking English. It's what we learned growing up. The same way, the way we see dogs is very, very westernized. And that perspective is actually very, very new relative to the many other perspectives that are out there. So when I say something like, the first thing I want to get out there is that the Tosa is not a Western breed. It is not a Victorian breed. And when it comes to just the Victorian era, that was when people started trying to formalize breeds. The dog fancy started doing their thing, and it needs to be understood that historically, right, the dog show scene was, I guess this is off topic, but just kind of setting some context. It was created by people who wanted you to be able to look at their dogs and see that their dogs were upper class dogs, just the same as the people wanted you to be able to see that the people were upper class people. And you can take that one way or another, but just looking at it structurally, this is something that came in the Victorian era with the very the caste system, the way they view people, the way they view dogs, status, and all that other kind of stuff. So when it comes to it, that is a way of looking at and understanding and managing dogs. That is not the way everybody does it the world over.
Right.
If you go to the regions of Central Asia, where the Central Asian Shepherd is, the people that I know over there or know of over there that have told me about the way they manage dogs over there, they won't even feed a pregnant female. They don't feed a pregnant female aside from maybe tossing her some scraps if they have them, but they don't necessarily feed those dogs. Those dogs have to go provide food for themselves in certain regions and still make sure none of the flock animals get lost. And as far as who manages and makes sure the dog is breeding this dog and that dog and this dog, nobody's doing that. Doesn't mean that they're not a breed. Doesn't mean that they're not going to get that work done.
I second that. I got pictures of some dogs in the mountains that look like prehistoric dogs. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's no. That's it. Exactly. As far as, we'd be appalled here in the US, especially to know, you don't provide shelter, and feed them every day at 3:30, because they got a clock, and stuff like that. Yeah. And the truth of it is that it doesn't mean they don't care about their dogs. It doesn't mean they don't understand dogs. It doesn't mean they aren't involved with their dogs. It just means that the role is different and the way they interact with the dogs is different. Mm-hmm. The same thing is true with the Tosa. The more you let go of the idea that it needs to fit into a Western box, say they were only bred by so many people, they can only be bred by so many people. The stud book needs to be closed. They can only look a certain way in order to be this breed. They can only come in certain colors, be this height, be this weight, have this bite, have this much wrinkles. The more you try to do that, the more the Tosa is going to continually break that box time and time again. And you're going to continually be wrestling with the idea that this dog just does not fit the Western box. There's too much human involvement for you to just call it a land race, but it's certainly not in the sense of a Victorian breed management system. So understanding that can explain a lot of things. Like, for instance, when we're talking about phenotype and people look at some of these dogs that have more of a longer snout, and they say that dog must be mixed with this, that, or the other thing. And then they see a dog that has a much shorter snout. That dog has to have recent bulldog bred into it. No, it doesn't. The stuff that's in these dogs has been in these dogs for quite some time. And what is brought out to the surface phenotypically and what is brought out and used in the time is what meets that moment and what serves the purpose. If you have a league where you have shorter time in between for breaks, so say for instance, we do a bigger comparison, zoom out a little bit and go to like Russia, where in between rounds they might have a half hour. They want the dog to have a full recovery, whereas in certain parts of Japan and Korea, you might get 30 seconds of standing there before it's called. You might get 90 seconds. You might get 3 minutes. Depends on the league and depends on the region. But if you have a region or a league where you have a 3-minute break, well, you can get away with the dog with a shorter muzzle, stronger bite, slightly stronger bite, because it doesn't need to do as much for as long or get back as quick. Whereas if you have a dog that has a 30-second break, you're going to see dogs with a longer muzzle, a bit more of a lighter, sportier build, things that are built to be able to deal with more pace, right? So when it comes to it, I guess the best or the simple way to say that would be the breed is not a monolith, if that makes any sense.
100%. Yeah.
And that would be the first thing. It's not a Western breed. The second thing would be kind of two parts. The first one is that it's not a pit bull. And this is for people who tend to think all fighting dogs are the same. This is one type of person that thinks all fighting dogs are the same. They see fighting dog, they think it's a pit bull, it's pit bull shaped, should be pit bull, right? They don't understand why it's not barking at other dogs, not doing this, not going here, not doing that. And they misunderstand what the breed is actually supposed to be. And they think because it's not a pit bull, it must not be what it's supposed to be. And that's a severe misunderstanding. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that part because if I say too much on that.
Well, I'm sorry too, but I don't understand. What it sounds like you saying is whenever you talk about the Tosa, here comes somebody's comparing the pit bull, and I don't with it,
Absolutely.
and I don't get it. Yeah, it's like how we go
Absolutely.
from this to this.
Absolutely. There's no.
It's a
I mean,
Western
I could say
mindset.
what I think the reason is.
Okay.
But
yeah.
But I don't know that I could deliver it very nicely.
Okay.
But let me put it like this. If I got a sports team that I'm really a big fan of, right? We're here in Texas, right? You got A&M and you got UT. You got the Cowboys and you got the Oilers or the Texans if you're newer, whatever. You got your rivalries. If I'm here and I say J.J. Watt is a great player on the Texans, and somebody can't say, hey, yeah, he was a really good defensive player. He was a really good person. Not a fan of the Texans. I'm a Cowboys fan, but he was a good player. Or just don't say anything at all. But as soon as you hear Texans this or Texans that, you have to say something, right? You got to come up and say something. You can't just let it sit. To me, in my opinion, this is not somebody who's very confident in their thing. This is not somebody who is very relaxed or calm or comfortable with the thing that they say is the best. This is somebody who needs everybody to see it that way and everybody else to see it that way. I think that's as much as I can carefully say on that. And I can leave that to interpretation. But as far as what I've seen, man, I can't talk about this breed without the people coming in and talking about pit bull this, pit bull that, Tosas are trash, this, that, or the other thing. And it's always the people that have never seen one in person. They've never touched one. They've never met one. If they had, you'd know that the way they talk about it would be different. Even if they said, hey, it's a great dog, it does this, that, or the other thing, but can't do that, that'd be one thing. But some of the stuff that they say lets me know they've never seen the dog at all. Because there's some stuff that just seeing one in person, you're not going to say that. Similarly, there's always somebody with a story. Some Japanese billionaire that traveled from Japan all the way over here to the U.S. Because the U.S. is the scene to be in the entire world. And they brought their best Tosa in a league that only has certain rules, and they're not even going to really let that dog go out of that league because that dog learned those rules in that league. Cross-league combat is extremely rare for that reason, because it's like teaching a dog Schutzen and then expecting them to immediately know French ring, or teaching them dock diving and expecting them to immediately translate that into lure coursing and following the rules. It's not the same, Yes. But of course, there was a Japanese millionaire that brought his Tosa to the US and made some forum somewhere in I don't know, pick a state, and brought in all challengers, and then so and so brought such and such a pit bull, and even though we know statistically pit bulls do better in the 30, I mean, you talk to real dog men, the 30 to 50 pound range is their sweet spot for their height. You start getting too much bigger than that, they turn into sitting targets, and they lose the thing that gives them the advantage. But somebody's 110 pound pit bull went up against this Tosa and destroyed it. And all of a sudden, the Japanese billionaire paid somebody $1 million, and everybody, at the end of the day, realized that the pit bull was the best dog on the planet and all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, you don't understand the culture. You've never even met a Japanese person. I can tell that. You don't understand the dog. You never seen one in person. There's no part of this that is actually believable, But the unfortunate part for me is that there will be people that see that, and they don't know any better. They don't know any better. And again, a lot of the Western mindset is, why wouldn't you travel the world and try to be the best and the greatest and put up wagers and stuff like that, without understanding that the Japanese work on a system of honor that's a little bit different. It's not to say that we're dishonorable here, but it's to say, I remember eating out with some Japanese friends once, and I had learned how to use chopsticks from Korean friends and Chinese friends, and I will never forget the dirty looks I got. My Korean friends taught me that if you have wooden chopsticks, you take them out and you rub them together to kind of make sure you get the wooden shavings off of them. Well, I got that habit, and I went ahead and did that in front of my Japanese friends. They all got quiet, and they were looking at me like, man, golly, and one of them pulled me aside and said, that's kind of insulting. Are you sure? Is this the way you're going to treat them? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said, well, when you rub them together, you're implying that it's very cheap. And you're telling these people that they provided you cheap things. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Well, I apologize for that. Can I get some different ones? And start over. And while I'm waiting, I set them in the food straight up and down so that way I wouldn't miss them or forget them. Offended them again. Because if you set them straight up and down, if you ever look at those rituals, those prayers that they offer for their ancestors and things like that, when they offer that food offering, those chopsticks are straight up and down. That's the only way to do that. That's the only reason why you do that. So if I do that, I'm disrespecting the ancestors. I mean, I can go down the list of these people who, when it comes to Tosas change hands in Japan and Korea, but they don't pay for them. These are not animals that they want to put a price on among people that they respect together. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's tradition, it's honor, it's respect, it's the way their version of honor and respect. And this person who, if I went over there and told them I had the best dog on the planet, they might laugh. They probably won't. They try their best not to. Mm-hmm. But they're not going to say anything. They can think you're an idiot. Your dogs are not going to perform very well in the ring, but they're not going to say anything because they understand that there's something to leaving that to those that are going to be doing that. They're not going to get in that mess. But these same people are going to travel across the world to come over here to talk mess and all this stuff. And it's just, I see that. I see, I'll post pictures of different dogs, or somebody will post a picture of a dog, and it'll be a dog that I know I'm extremely familiar with from over there. One really good example, this dog named Mapak over in Korea. Very, 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 very storied, very well accomplished dog. Comes from lines that go back to virtually World War II. I know the man that bred those lines up. And people don't understand that when you just look at that picture of that dog and say, oh, that dog has pit bull in it, that dog has Kangal in it, look at those colors, it's got to be this, that, or the other thing. You're not just saying, this is my thought. You're implying this is what this person did. And on the one hand, they don't have a problem with a mix in the sense of somebody making a mix or, working through their program, whatever they're doing. That's one thing. But the misrepresentation of it,
right?
That's when it gets really, really sideways. And these are people that can look at mixes and can tell you they will never miss it. They can tell. I have a lot of respect for breeders in Europe that I can show a picture of a dog, a Western dog, and they can tell me which kennel that dog came out of or which country that dog came out of in Europe. I know of 1 or 2 people in this breed that can do that. And they're very, very good at that. The Korean dogmen I know, the Japanese dogmen I know can do better. They can tell you not just if the dog is a Tosa, what percentage of it is. They can actually tell you the originating kennel that dog's lines came from in Japan. They can tell you where that dog traces its ancestry to. And I don't know how they do that. But there's something about it in the sense that they are brutally honest. They are honest to a fault. They are clear. They're straightforward. If a dog is a mix, they will tell you it's a mix. If a dog came from a farm dog, a meat farm in Korea, they will call it that. They will tell you that. And they would never misrepresent their dogs. So when we look at these pictures and say, oh, that's a Kangal mix, so that dog has longer fur, it's got to be mixed with this, that, or the other thing, or this, that, or the other thing. Not only are we just speaking in ignorance, but we are speaking volumes against these people and their character and their own honor and their respect. And one of the biggest struggles I have, working with this breed and trying to make the future for this breed is bringing these people together. I need to bring Western people and Japanese and Korean dogmen together. There's a big chasm of distrust, and a lot of it has to do with misunderstanding, but that doesn't excuse it. And when it comes to, me making a post and somebody has to pop up and talk about pit bulls, me making a post and somebody says this dog has to be mixed, that dog has to be mixed, you're driving a wedge in between and cutting off a future for some of these dogs. And you might not understand that. And I don't want to, catastrophize it or blow it up. But when it comes to why I sometimes speak out more than I probably should, and certainly get a lot more passion than the average person might, it's because I see that. I see where it's headed. I see 5-10 years.
I 100% get it. I could tell your love for the breed. I can tell that, hey, I don't want it played with, because this is not a dog. It's not like the rest of you guys' dogs. Y'all got plenty of that stuff. This is a rare dog. You're the only breeder over here. So I 100% get it. And still, a lot of that still goes back into how we are as a society, Corey. Podcasting. I swear to God, you can't, if you podcast on anything, hear somebody that blah, 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 blah. You shouldn't say that, whether it be training, blah, 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 blah. You can never, we have a hog-like mentality in this country. It's like you can't win for losing. So so sometimes I just like for the comment section, I've done it so much I have to ignore it, but still let them express themselves unless they get disrespectful. But it's something you'll have to, it can be dangerous. It can be very dangerous. And I understand, like, the comments, people read them, and people take that, put it in their mind. It's been like me and you discussed offline. Said, dang, I couldn't really never find a really good Tosa video. Besides the stuff you had, and I'm sure a lot of it, the stuff is inaccurate. What I'm seeing, but I seen one video that just basically said, "Well, I can't find nothing on the Tosa. I see some pictures like this breed is going to shit." Basically, I was like, "Damn, I wouldn't even made the video. I wouldn't even made it."
Yeah.
Media is very dangerous to dogs. Dog media, we're dangerous to dogs too. We'll put up the wrong dogs. We'll put up our friends' dogs for the nation to see, and it's total bullcrap. But anyway,
that's true.
I digress.
No, that's absolutely true, and that's it. Like that to me, when somebody asks me, the breed has been here this long in the U.S., why aren't they AKC recognized? We can set aside like the disagreements, like some of the stuff I've talked about, like the reasons why. Personally, I'm not interested in joining the AKC as it stands, and the people that I work with aren't at this time either. Not unless we can meet heads. But the main thing I think is people need to come together.
Right.
People need to come together. They need to learn how to work together past differences, and they need to learn how to move forward. And I think appreciate chatting with you about it yesterday, because it's like you reminded me that that's something that I'm still growing into. I'll admit it. That's something I'm still growing into, because shoot, man, I'll be the first.
I'll be honest with you. The comment section is tough, but trust me, I have to let it out sometimes. But usually it is usually a mangling where somebody get mangled bad, and then I rejuvenate. So, but yeah, I want you to. I know it's a lot of things. I know how much you honor and respect this breed by talking to you offline, chatting with you offline. But you mentioned something just a minute ago about the AKC. Now I know how you really feel, and I know, but I want you to kind of talk about without giving too much, because we want to be careful with that. Why is it not a good time, or why not the AKC, just in general?
So I'll say that the AKC as an organization, one thing I didn't know until working with them, trying to work with them recently, is that they are set up. Their structure is intended to be set up kind of like our U.S. government. The U.S. government is, in theory, representatives from our, of the people, by the people. In a similar way, right? The AKC is not supposed to be a big organization. They're a conglomerate of breed clubs. So when talking with them and trying to set terms for how we would enter, what that would need to look like, we kind of ran into a wall, in the sense that in order to change the things that we need changed, in order for it to be beneficial for the breed, we have to be the breed club. And in order to be the breed club for them, we have to work with the things that we know immediately need to change. So when it comes to that, just kind of realizing there was a bit of an impasse there. At this time, it's just not for us.
Gotcha.
Could there be a point in the future where they make some sort of loophole in their bylaws or this, that, the other thing that sorts things out? I'm not sure. But I do think that there have been some benefits to being independent, in the sense that we can include more people, we can work broader, we can work directly with country of origin dogs and their breeders in Japan and Korea. We can work directly with breeders here in the Americas and stuff like that. So when they come, So it's not all, it's not all bad, but
No.
it's definitely
Gotcha.
different.
Gotcha. Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, you could take it however you want to go with it, but it's I would say a underworld.
Mm.
Um, some people say gangs. You explained this to me the other day that some people say like gangs, and but in the Asian countries, they're considered more like organizations. Um,
Mhm.
could you give us a breakdown on and how it is attached to the Tosa?
Yeah. So just speaking generally,
Mhm,
um, I can't speak for every country. So if we're talking, for instance, triads or something like that, um, I don't know a whole lot about them or how they fit into that society particularly. But if we're talking about Japan, we're talking about yakuza. Um, as far as their role in society and their place in society, um, their start is not very well understood, when exactly they began. But there is a strong leaning towards samurai, in the sense of like Ronin and warriors without a leader. That's not the only way they see themselves at all.
mhm,
Um, but there are strong ties to certain values, um, of that tradition, if that makes any sense.
mhm,
Um, their history goes way back, in that way. As far as their place in society, um, it's very unique. When we think of gangs here, we think of organized crime here in the West. We think of the mob, we think of gangs, the Bloods and the Crips, and all that other kind of stuff. MS-13. If you're in South America, there's others as well. Um, their role in society is more on the outskirts. They tend to be associated or understood to be associated strictly with crime. Whereas the Yakuza are more associated with, they're more associated with a lot of things. And I can give you examples. It doesn't mean that, and as I said the other day, it doesn't mean that they don't do crimes. It doesn't mean that they aren't in, certain activities. But for example, I forget what tsunami it was that hit, but there was a tsunami that hit Japan and rocked it. And the first organization on the scene, passing out water, making sure things weren't being looted, getting people help, transportation, et cetera, were the Yakuza. Um, so if you could imagine, the I don't know, the Gotti family. I don't know if that's an actual name. It's just something I've heard. But if you could imagine them also running the Red Cross, and also running the community center, and
Oh
also
yeah.
being your U.S. representatives,
Oh yeah.
and
That's
all
not far
those.
fetched.
It's not far fetched,
Yeah.
but not in the sense of doing it behind the scenes, but doing it openly. Like, that's a
Oh.
boss right there. That's a head
Oh.
boss
Okay.
right there. Hello, sir, Mr. So and so. That's his children. Don't mess with them. That's his friend. Don't mess with him. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So their role in society is far more open, and um, I won't say it's necessarily central, but it is interwoven, in a lot of the fabric of society. When it comes to, for instance, dogfighting, the push for ending dogfighting over there was stopped by the Yakuza. The of repute, some of the biggest founders of the dog fancy there, even in just a dog show, Yakuza, right? So it's not just, they're hiding behind the scene and fighting dogs, or just running crimes or things like that. They are very unique. I think they fit a very unique role in society that we don't have an analog for here in the West. And I want to be clear, I'm not agreeing with their practices or standpoints or anything like that, but just understanding the structure of how they fit in society is very, very unique. So when it comes to the Tosa, the dog that is the passed down inheritance of the samurai, of course they're going to have their hands on it. Of course they're going to want to be involved with it, you know. So there are several that are involved, but my understanding is that the twain do not meet, in that they run their own events and their own way and have their own rules. And while they might have some members in the regular organizations, the regular organizations run differently. They run more by the rules that we've heard and work with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when it comes to it, there's only so much I can say reasonably to say as far as how much I actually know, and then reasonably as far as how much I'm at liberty to say. But when it comes to just kind of understanding, yes, there absolutely is a form of an underworld, and they're involved in a lot of things in society. If you have sports, if you have, you know, any number of things, they're involved in it, and the Tosa is no different. But yeah, I will say that when it comes to the people themselves, again, they themselves are not monoliths. Everybody that's in the organization is not involved in everything. I don't want to misrepresent that either. It's kind of a fine line to walk, but everybody that's in that organization is not involved in everything. Some people are members of the organization, but they never do anything with it. Some people are hook, line, and sinker all in, you know. But when it comes to their role on the Tosa, I think that even they played a very, very important role in helping to make sure that the dogs are preserved, if for no other reason that they see them as something that is a part of their heritage and their birthright to a certain extent, right? And tradition. So yeah, I think that would probably be about the limit of what I could reasonably and safely say on that.
Let me ask you this: How were you treated? Were you accepted into this dog culture? How are foreigners looked at when it comes to the Tulsa's dog culture?
I think that okay, I'm going to try to stay as general as I possibly can.
Don't get in trouble.
But unfortunately, there are going to be some people that they're going to get their toes stepped on a little bit. But I want to be clear that the reason why I feel like it's okay to speak about it generally is because these people have already exhibited certain behaviors publicly. So for those who are interested in, you know, seeing what that's about, it's already out there. For the way they view the average Westerner, it's somebody who wants a dog to say they got a dog from that country. It's somebody who wants a big dog, a dog that comes in a certain color. They also want the dog to be both a championship Yokozuna and at the same time able to win in a show ring. And I just want to talk about that for a split second. What defines a dog in the ring versus what defines the dog in the show aren't just different, right? It's not made by the same people. And what I mean by that is the show scene made a standard for the breed to fix a problem that didn't exist. They already had a standard. They already had a way of managing the dogs. They already had a way of making sure that the dogs had a way to prove themselves, develop the character, work, etc., etc., etc. They had all that. But the show scene wanted to be more like the West. So they started a kennel club. And in that kennel club, they wanted to put many of their Japanese breeds, and they kind of rushed through the Tosa breed standard. And these are people that never sat down and take the time to talk to these dogmen who will talk to you. They absolutely will talk to you, but you can't come at them sideways. You can't come at them with self-service. You can't come at them with an ulterior motive. You can't come at them thinking you're going to say something to one and then say something else to another, and that they don't talk. You can't come at them with two faces, because they'll see straight through that. Just as soon as they'll see through a mix, they can spot it a mile away. They've seen enough of the world to know. So if Americans come over there and they say, like one person who was recently bragging about how their dogs that they bred back in the day must be better than what we have here, because they paid $750,000 for their dogs. That was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And of course, they're trying to say all that and talk about how much they know being over there in the country, sitting and watching matches and stuff. And to me, I can see already, no, you thought you would buy clout. That's what you thought you would buy. You thought you would buy reputation and get a shortcut to relevance. That's what you did. And you didn't impress them. You're sitting on here and you're talking bad about somebody else's dogs. As I've said earlier in this podcast episode, if you spent 5 minutes with those men and understood their concept of honor and respect and dignity, you wouldn't do that.
Right.
You wouldn't do that.
Right.
Even if you could hate somebody's dogs to death, think that they're the problem with the world, you're still not going to say that.
No.
So I can tell whatever time you spend over there, you didn't learn anything. And when it comes to it, if you go over there and tell them you want to spend $250,000, they'll say, okay. Anybody will say, okay. Right?
Would that be cash or cash out? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's like, man, I'm sitting here and listening to this person talk, and it's like, I really don't think I would have shared that. I don't. I'm sitting here and you're missing that what I paid for my dogs was less, not because of quality, but because of respect. Not because of clout, but because we can see each other eye to eye better. And I won't say that every relationship that I have with every Korean or Japanese dog man is perfect right now, or that I know them all, because I don't. And it's a very, very, very steep curve as far as like learning those cultural differences. Like I said, man, you got to watch them chopsticks. Like you see those movies or whatever where somebody's sitting there and they have the chopsticks and it's a lady getting ready to fight and she does this thing and suddenly she's got him holding her hair up.
Right.
I bet you it wasn't a Japanese. I bet you it wasn't a Japanese. She was Korean. She was Taiwanese. She was Chinese. She was not Japanese. I bet you she wasn't. I bet you she wasn't. Or they made a Japanese cut for that scene in which she took them and set them down at the proper angle on the table, because you lose the whole culture with that nonsense, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
And it's one of those things that if I could zoom out for a second, I would say this. When I'm talking to these people, half the time I'm not trying to compete with them. They need their males for work. I'm not going over there and saying, I want your biggest, baddest Yokozuna and I want him right now. No, that's not what I'm doing. I understand you got a program. I understand you got stuff that you're doing. Further, as a sign of respect, I trust your judgment. You are a good dog man. You are established kennel and you are doing good work out there. Pick something for me. This is what I'm looking for. This is, you know, kind of the direction that we're trying to go. And understand, I don't need the dog to win at a show ring. I don't need the dog to have fit into this height, have this color, this bite, this, that, or the other. No, give me what you would be proud of saying you sent this way. I've had one that said, you know, hey, it'd be easier to get a dog from somebody that got a dog from me than to export a dog from me directly. It's going to be a lot more expensive. And that was the one that I was saying to him, look, would you get a dog from them? If you had to start from scratch, would you go get a dog from them? And he said, no. I would get dogs from friends here. I would get dogs from friends in this country or from friends in the other country. And I told him, look, I take it as high regard and high honor that you would recommend them. I know you don't do that lightly. So I know it's not garbage that they have over there. They got great dogs, I'm sure. But I want what you want. And I want there to be a day, if you want to know what I'm looking for long term, I want there to be a day where you can say, I don't have to just get a dog in Korea or Japan in order to be able to continue my program. I can get a dog from the West because a good Tosa is a good Tosa. That's and right. He laughed. You know, he laughed. And to be honest with you, it's a dreamer. I know that it's a big dream because it takes a lot to do that. That's not something you just stand up and, oh, I want to do that. No.
Right.
One of the biggest hurdles is putting people together. But he said, after he got through laughing, he said, and this is a person who's been in this breed again since he was a kid. He probably saw these dogs just after the war, World War II. Half the pictures that you've seen in Japan or Korea were pictures that he took, you know.
Right.
I'm not naming names, but this is a guy people know. And he said in all his years of this breed, he's never heard a Westerner talk like that. Right. And on the one hand, to me, I take it as, you know, sign of respect. Thank you. I think we finally starting to understand each other. But on the other hand, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because it's like, well, no wonder there's such a divide. No wonder it takes so long to build that trust. No wonder it takes so much to maintain it. Because if you've never heard somebody say that, if you've never heard somebody say that, what are we doing?
Right.
You know? So when it comes to the relationship, it's got to be respectful. It's got to be trusting. It's got to be honoring. It's got to be somebody who goes out of their way to meet them where they are and take their leadership and follow it. It's got to, it can't, I'll get calls from people that'll be like, hey man, yeah, I'm out here in Japan. I want to know if you can hook me up with somebody that can show me some Tosas. The Tosa is not a Western breed. It doesn't work like that. These people don't work like that. You could go over there for 6 months and you may never see a match. You probably won't. There's people that have grown up over there their whole lives. And the first time they saw one was when they came here and met one of mine. Matter of fact, first time. There's a lady on social media. I don't know if I have the permission to say her name, but she came over here from Japan. She's been over here touring the US and she's mid-30s ish. And her husband, who's a bit older than her, the first time they've ever seen a Tosa, one of our dogs right here in Austin. Right. You know? So these aren't dogs you're going to see at shows. These aren't dogs you're going to see places. And it's not like I can just call up and say, you know, hey, show a dog to so-and-so. They're going to come and meet you at this time in this place. No, you have to take the time to earn that respect. Each individual person needs to earn that respect. And if you don't got 3 to 5 years to set aside to meet these people where they are and do the work, put in the time to get to know them and respect them and be there at that point, and get invited over, then, I mean, you can go and spend money on a dog. Apparently, $750,000. Joe.
I hope we get in the court and call me.
Yeah. Yeah, shoot, man. Golly. And it's not like, it's not like that doesn't work here in the West, right?
Right.
If somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I spent $1 million on this dog," people are talking about. I mean, this is back in the 90s. Somebody spent $750,000 on a dog. If somebody comes up and says that that's how much I paid, then people are going to assume that dog must be worth something. The dog must, so it works with the marketing. And if you come over here and you say, "Hey, I got championship bloodlines. This is a Yokozuna, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My dogs are the real dogs and the real deal." That's going to be great marketing, wonderful marketing in the sense that people are going to eat that up. But those dog men see that. They see that, and they see what you're about. And I mean, shoot, man, I can tell you tales, man. I don't know if people get it yet, but when I go, I still have to maintain relationships with other breeders in the West. I still need to make sure that my genetics are broad. And in order to do that, I have to have good relationships with breeders in the West. And I have hurt a lot of breeders' feelings because some of these programs are just about that show and that marketing. You call them up to talk to them, and all you get is line. And it's like, okay, I understand that is what you're trying to do to sell your dogs. I get that. And that's what you want to do out there in public facing. That's fine. But you and me, we're going to talk or we're not, because for me, I'm never going to believe. I've been in dogs too long to think that a dog is going to be better than the people behind it. You can have the best dogs, the best lines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I find people cutting corners because they can. I find people, man, I mean, shoot, I could tell you some stuff, man. I mean, you go to the OFA, go to the OFA website. And this dog has been here as long as the OFA has been around. Actually, it's been in the US as long as the OFA has been around. I know the 101st Tosa that got its OFA stuff done. Prior to that, 100 dogs. 100 dogs have been tested. Yeah. You go to the Labrador, it's something like 300,000 on just their hips. Golden Retriever, same. If I recall correctly, the Borbal somewhere in the 100,000s. You can just keep going down that list, and you got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dogs. Borbal has not been here long enough to justify those numbers if we're going at the rate the Tosa has gone. And yet and still, that's it. And of those 100 dogs, do you know, if I go right now and take my dog and get his elbows checked with the OFA and get those publicly reported, my dog will be number one. The first in history to have his elbows checked. Wow. Not because, big people need their elbows checked, but because if I can do enough to say I did enough, if I can say I tested some of their hips, if I can say we got our stuff OFA tested, I can move forward. If I can say I did the minimum, then I can make it to where people don't look harder. And that's a hard pill to swallow. I'm not trying to put down anybody's program in particular, but what I am trying to do is talk about that culture and talk about that practice and that way. We can't be doing that. Like we if we want this breed to exist into the future, we can't be doing that. Like that's not sustainable. That's utter nonsense. I did genetic testing and worked with Wisdom Panel to get steep discounts for general genetic testing for people who have Tosas, and did free testing, completely free through Wisdom if your dog is not related to a dog that's already been tested. You can help train their computer for free. And you know how many people took up on that?
Not many.
How many Tosa people that are, you know, again, I'm not trying to name names, but I'm talking about, I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't. I don't understand, especially if it's free. I don't understand why you wouldn't. If you could brag about spending $1,000 on OFA, but you can't spend $100 on genetic testing to test 200 plus genetic precursors. I'm not saying it's 100% perfect or anything like that, but neither is OFA, and neither is PinHip. And they'll tell you.
Yeah, and that's what
they're
saying about the DNA testing right now. Shit, that it's inaccurate. They've been reporting about it on the news.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of breeders tell me that down through the years, especially old school breeders. I know what I put in that dog. The test is wrong, and then you have other people that live and die by it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that genetic tests are the end all be all, but if I could say that there are parts of a picture of what each dog is, there's no part that you can say, hey, this is all I need. That's my point.
Right. Yeah,
you can have a bunch of different perspectives, much the same as if you have a diagnosis from a doctor, you might ask for a second opinion. Same thing. But at least knowing as much of that picture as you can get and that effort, you know, if you're not going to do genetic testing, if you are going to say you did OFA, you do hips and elbows, you know, because those are joints too, you know, still carrying just as much of that weight.
Yeah.
But
I have a question. When we talking about the Western and Eastern concept or perspective, what is the Eastern perspective on dog breeding? Such things such as line breeding, inbreeding. How do they look at those techniques?
Honestly, I can't say that I know for sure. I think that they will line breed as it works. I think that they will bring in dogs from other kennels from time to time. Naturally, other dogs from other breeds may be brought in from time to time. And if I can make a little segue, like a little side point, I would say there is a narrative that the Tosa didn't exist before 1865. And, you know, these Japanese people with their little worthless shikoku were sitting there with these dogs that they thought were the greatest until the English came with their wonderful heaven-sent dogs that were able to show these country folk the truth of what it is to be a ring dog and bless them with their greatness, you know. And of course, there was then this fire sale where everybody in Japan just went and got all these, like you'll see these pictures of a Tosa in the middle, and there's like 14 or 15 breeds in this web of all these dogs they say were brought in, and that's not the case. That is not the case. But like I said, the stud book has never been closed and never will be closed. And those dogs, those individual dogs that were added to the breed once the Europeans started coming over, those individual dogs, first off, proved themselves individually. There was never a fire sale on any breed, first off. Second off, the reason why those dogs were added, if you come at it with a Western perspective, you say they were breeding the Shikoku, only one breed, only one dog, line breeding, inbreeding, etc. This one Victorian breed, they saw these other Victorian breeds and they added them, and now they have the real Tosa. No, there was never a closed stud book. It was a project, a pursuit of the ultimate Bushido. And when whatever dog came up that showed that, they brought that dog in. And that's why the Western dogs were able to be added in the first place, right? So when we go to, you know, now people might say, you know, the modern Tosa this, the modern Tosa that. If you want to be technical and accurate, you can only go back 10 years saying modern Tosa, because I can guarantee you the 10 years prior to that was a different dog genetically. 10 years prior to that, different dog genetically, because different things were added by different people in different times and bred in different directions and all that different kind of stuff. So it is a pursuit more than a stagnant snapshot. And when you look at like Eastern Tosas versus Western Tosas, it needs to be understood. People will say, well, these Western dogs, they all look the same. They all, can breed consistent to this or that or the other thing. The reason being was that these are ultimately dogs that are from a few programs. They're not a full sample of all the dogs and lines that are in that country or in Korea. These are dogs that are from a handful of programs. So they're not that far unrelated in the first place. And when it comes to it, those dogs were bred from that type and that line. You could almost say that the Western Tosa is a snapshot in time of the Tosa from the 80s and 90s, unless you have some more recent infusion, like what we and a couple other kennels have, because of the fact that instead of continuing to move the breed forward, they try to capture what's there and hold on to it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Makes a bunch of sense.
Versus Japan, Korea, the work is the metric. The work is the goal. So if the dog today can be improved tomorrow, I don't care if he stands taller or shorter. I don't care if he, I really don't care. It's about the work. That's what it is, as far as these people's mindset is concerned. So would they inbreed or line breed? I think they could. I'm not familiar enough with anybody's breeding program to say for sure, but from what I've seen, they do not. I have not personally seen it or witnessed it. And the reason why, again, is because it's too easy to get another dog. Some lines have actually died out because rather than waiting for that line to produce what they're trying to produce, they actually just go and get another line. It's only the dog only has so many tries to produce it. So just as far as my understanding of practices and what I've seen, I've never witnessed tight breeding over there. But I can't say that they don't.
Okay.
I can say that when I tell them that I want to keep my genetic pool broad, and try my best to represent the variety in the breed as much as possible, they've never had a problem or a quibble with that. And in private conversations, they wouldn't have a problem telling me, hey, no, you need to breed tighter, etc., if it was something that was super on their mind. So I don't think that that's something that's very common.
Got you. This here, you so function determine the dog, and at one point in the West, function still determine the dog, because I hear stories about pit bulls that wasn't all the way pit bulls.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Has there ever been an instance of a game bred dog having Tosa in it in this country?
Yes, there have definitely been people that have made band dogs with Tosa and pit. Can I say that those dogs definitely did not enter back into pits? I cannot. I'm going to go ahead and upfront say I am not enough of an expert on pits to be able to say for certain one way or another. I've seen dogs that make me take a second look. But again, that's really speculation. There are some programs that work with pits heavily that have stated that they've used Tosa. But aside from that, I can't say whether or not that was the case for even several people. Is that what you asked? You were breaking up a little bit.
Yeah. I was just asking. Yeah. You got it.
Gotcha.
Another thing I
Okay.
wanted to ask is about the resilience of this breed, because you brought up something very important when we was talking the other day. You brought up how wars have almost destroyed a lot of breeds, and I was looking it up, and I'm like, whoa! It was a lot of breeds that's been affected by war, especially when you talk about Japan. You know, do you got a little
Mhm.
history on what happened? How was the breed was able to survive, and other breeds, if you think?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to it, and this kind of touches back to what we opened up with as far as finding out how to deal with the drama properly without sinking into it. Um, when people fight, dogs suffer first. We can say, oh, this dog's great, that dog's trash, this, that, or the other thing, and we might not see how that affects things long term, but it absolutely does. And not just for the breed as a whole in the future, but for individual dogs immediately, things go south. And nowhere is that more apparent than if you just track um, wars and their effect on local dogs, not just local wildlife, but on dog breeds. How many dog breeds have gone extinct during human wars? It's astonishing. How many dog breeds have had to be rebuilt after wars, or restarted, or recreated from scratch because of human conflict? And sometimes it's interpersonal, sometimes it's international. um, but yeah, so when it comes to um, the Tosa, they are no exception. So when the World War hit Japan, um, a few things happened. It kind of caught the country off guard, because prior to the war actually getting there, um, there was a sense that there was no way that their daily lives would be disrupted. And it's just the picture and the image that they were given by their leaders and authorities. Um, but suddenly, right, the US hits Japan, and it's not something that you can write out of the news. Everybody knows.
Mhm.
The restrictions on dogs start going up through the roof. And again, this wasn't just in Japan. Same thing happened in Germany. It happened in so many different countries. And even think about the US during the Great Depression. When we were trying to get out of that the same way. um, Having a big dog that needed to be fed was illegal in Japan.
Yeah.
If that dog didn't have a job, if it didn't have a way that it could serve in the war, it was illegal to keep it. So pretty much, most Japanese dog breeds were pushed kind of to the brink of extinction.
Mhm.
Um, but the reason why the Tosa started to get a presence in Korea was because certain dogs were exported to Korea. I believe also to Taiwan, to protect the breed, in other parts of Asia, to protect the breed and keep it moving forward. Um, as far as after the war, some of those dogs came back. Some of the offspring of those dogs came back. But even during the war, some dogs stayed in Japan. And I remember one anecdote. So, give you a family name, Hirose, Hirose. Um, I remember hearing an anecdote, and I want to say it was of them. Um, One of their mothers, grandmothers during that war, they weren't supposed to have Tosas, of course, but she wasn't going to let them get rid of them. So they kept them. Um, and one day on the way home, she stopped at the grocery, the little store mart, to get what little food she could, and got it, and was followed. And somebody kind of pulled up on her and tried dragging her kind of down out of sight, to. And fortunately, it was within earshot of her dog.
Mm.
And that dog got out of its enclosure, um, got clear across several blocks over, I guess, as big as the blocks might have been in that small regional area, and saved her life. Of course, after that moment, it wasn't so difficult to justify to her husband why they're breaking the law, right?
Right.
The dogs are in their way, right? But there are stories and anecdotes like that floating around if you look into them. Again, fact check me. Feel free to fact check me on that one. I want to say it was definitely the Hirose family, but there are enough of them still around today that you can, if somebody can check with them directly. But I know that I remember hearing that story. I think it was them. But anyway, in that time between dogs that were exported and dogs that were kept in the country, after the war, the program continued. And again, if you think about this with a Western perspective, you think, oh, they only had 12, 13 dogs, so they inbred. No, they didn't. They restarted the tradition. They restarted what I might call the forge that made the dogs in the first place. In guarding and protecting and continuing the tradition and the forge, they continued the breed. If they just focused on continuing the breed, inbreeding, all that other kind of stuff would have been normal with a lot of the Western perspective. But that's not what they were about, if that makes any sense. Again, not setting any hierarchy, but just saying what was more likely to have passed and happened.
Step into the realm of canine wisdom with our podcast, NWA Connie Corsos, where we interview dog men and women from around the globe. Discover their talents and insights on breeding, training, nutrition, and the rich history of dogs. Tune in to the most underrated yet influential dog podcast on social media. Your journey into the dog world starts here.